Ready?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lowdown. Today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the Global Ambassador of CONIFA, Jason Heaton, to discuss all things about the organisation and his role within it. Jason, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Connor, and thanks for having me on. Very much delighted to be playing a part in this fantastic podcast series that you've been putting together.
Jason, it's my absolute pleasure. I suppose for those listening who might not be aware, what exactly is CONIFA?
It's the Confederation of Independent Football Associations. It's been running for around I think we're into the 8th year now, and it represents people above all, their culture and their heritage, but quite often peoples that have become a sort of dysphoria of the land, de facto nations, nations unrepresented by FIFA, and people coming out. Sometimes you've got people coming out of civil wars and just putting themselves in a situation where they want to represent themselves on an international stage.
And if you had to say, if there was one overarching goal or mission of the organisation, Jason, what would that be?
To represent people.
And of course, in your previous role, General Secretary of CONIFA, I know you've since left that position now, Jason, for the role of Global Ambassador. Could you talk us through that process and the new incumbent?
How I became General Secretary, or how I passed it on?
Yeah.
Actually, about a year ago, the organisation went through a transitional period. It'd been going for about 6 or 7 years. There was a few people sort of ready to move on in their own careers, one of them being the General Secretary. I've been heavily involved in the organisation since 2017. I was a main organiser for what was to become the 2018 World Cup in London. That's how I predominantly got involved. And throughout that process, I became Global Business Director and helped develop a member, which is Kernow FA, an international football team for Cornwall. And as we came into 2020, like I say, it's a transitional time, people moving on, and the position for General Secretary came available. And I just thought, well, actually, the World Cup that was going to be hosted in North Macedonia had been postponed, and the energy that had been generated through getting Kernow FA qualified for that World Cup, and we qualified first in Europe, there was just an immense momentum there and energy carried over. And I just kind of utilised that energy and put myself forward for the role of General Secretary. I got in touch with Per Anders, the president, and because you've got to work closely with the president, and he said he'd be absolutely delighted to have me come on board. And then, so I put myself in there, and then you have to get elected. You have to get voted in by the Global Executive Committee, which consists of around 12 to 16 members at any one point from all over the world. And they sort of took almost like a standing vote at an executive committee meeting, which is always quite nervy times because you sat in the room and people have to vote on you. And got voted in. But it was from that point, sort of came in and really helped to restructure things and helped to get the organisation through a transitional period onto that next level of being an international sort of humanitarian organisation.
That's absolutely fantastic, Jason. But even touching back on yourself, aside from CONIFA, where did this love for football begin? Would you say growing up you were just your average kid scoring goals at Wembley in the back garden, or did you firmly believe, strange thing to say, albeit at a younger age, that you wanted to have a higher purpose when it came to football, using it perhaps as a tool for
But,
something better?
oh, that is, it's both. It's both. I grew up where it's tough. It's tough times. It was tough times, economically, socially. There wasn't, if you like, much money around. Where I grew up in West Yorkshire, in Pontefract in West Yorkshire, as a strong sort of mining community, and in the early 80s there was a lot of trouble around that, and we got caught up in all that. So you found yourself sort of cast aside, and at the back end of a social spectrum, if you like. But we were just cast at the back. It gives you a lot of time to think, and there's a lot of love in these places, but there's not a lot else. So you have a lot of time to work things out. So you used to play in the street. We used to play football in the street. There was a playing field across the road, and you used to, like the estate where we grew up, used to play like the street on the other side of that field, which was, we used to call it like the posh street, and you'd all meet on the field, and it'd be like 30 aside, and you'd just play football all day, and then you'd just go home and have your tea and and stuff like that. I used to practice, like playing, like you say, playing, thinking you're playing at Wembley in your garden. I used to, you used to play Wally just off the side of your house, probably much to the annoyance of my mother and father, just for days on end. But I was actually, it was actually quite confusing, because there was no one that played football in my family, and it was just sort of one of those street game aspects as far as I was aware. But I was born with an overwhelming sense that I would play a role in football that I can only describe as it felt like I was going to be massive in football. And that's not to say that I've reached those goals, but it was quite overwhelming at the time. But I had to try and work that out somehow. It was pretty tough. I actually remember getting the first pair of football boots that my granddad brought round for me, and I didn't even really know what playing in a team was. I didn't have a clue. I actually played out in the street in them. So yeah, you kind of had all these sort of emotions running through your mind. Confidence levels are never quite high in these situations, and you sort of get locked into certain paradigms and thinking, and these are hard-working people as well. So you kind of expected to, certainly in my household, you were expected to sort of go to work hard, work things out, which you were always expected to work things out. I think that was probably the greatest gift I was ever given, and the opportunity that and what was expected of you. So not really getting involved in a team. I think the first youth team I ever got involved in, it didn't really go very far, and it didn't really come to much. But it was that football club that they did a football trip, and they took us from West Yorkshire, and they took us to Old Trafford to watch took us to a Manchester United game, to watch Manchester City, and they charged you £3.50 for the privilege. And that was your travel to get you into the game. And they must have been 1989, 1990. Well, we can do the history, because Ryan Giggs, everyone was talking about this young lad called Ryan Giggs. He's making his debut at 16, and he came on and scored an equalising goal against Manchester City. And who was to know where that was to lead to, with what Ryan Giggs actually pulled out the bag. So that was, I suppose, my first sort of major sort of football memory. But other than that, it didn't really go anywhere. It just went nowhere. But the overwhelming sense that I had a part to play in football at some level sort of stuck with me. And by the time I got to 19, 20, by this point, I got apprenticeships and I was working, I'd done a bricklaying apprenticeship in construction, but it just never left me. It absolutely never left me. And it was actually becoming detrimental to my own health, that I wasn't either accepting this sort of purpose, or I wasn't really dealing with it. And I just made a decision when I was about 19, 20 that I really needed to start working on it. I looked at football, and there used to be lots of questions around, like, why was England rubbish at penalties? That was a big question back when I was growing up, and England used to lose on penalties, it seemed a lot. And I used to think, well, why are we rubbish at penalties? Why is it that no one is practicing penalties? That's the only thing that was in my mind, So I thought, what I'll do, it seemed to me that no one was working around the outside of football. It just seemed you either played football or you talked about football, but no one seemed to work on the outsides and work things out. So I thought, I'll do that. I actually made the decision, I'll take 20 years to really work on the outside of all of that. And somehow that'll come into play. And pretty much 20 years to that day, I joined CONIFA after grassroots coaching and freestyle football and stuff, But yeah, that's when it really came into its own.
Pretty incredible journey, though, Jason.
See that through. Say that again, sorry.
It's a pretty incredible journey, really, when you speak about it, having this greater purpose within you to work inside of football, be it at a younger age playing.
Yeah.
As you approach your late teens, then that moves into coaching capacity, administrative, and just in terms of kind of the whole holistic package, you speak about figuring things out. It's more or less the mindset, having that abundance mindset, knowing that you're made for something greater and trying to work your way through it by experimenting largely.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, actually. I would absolutely agree with that. Those things, there's just so much you don't know that you don't know. And you just have to start. You've got to start. And you've got to, I think, just faith in that there is something there. And yeah, you just got to see it through. I mean, really, I was surrounded by a lot of Leeds United fans, really passionate Leeds United fans. And that's really where it sort of started. I thought, let's work on why people are so passionate. What drives them to follow a team across Europe, and why they're so revered as a fan base, and why is it then when you realise that these people are not just on your doorstep, that there's a fan base that spreads all over the world. And it's the same for major clubs, it's the same for countries, and it's the same for everything I see now. I get people emailing me for badges for obscure teams that you sometimes wonder if people even realise that they're there. So yeah, that was that was like the sort of real start of that journey, I would say. But yeah, it's the working things out. I seem to have that kind of drive and brain. I just don't want to waste the sort of the way that we can work. Just don't want to waste that, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally, it does.
You just got to be able to utilise yourself and put yourself forward. It takes a lot of doing. It takes a lot of doing when there's no one there to show you. Yeah.
But in a way,
you have to show yourself, Connor, I think, don't you?
Of course. But in a way, it's like paving a new road, new path, so to speak, which obviously CONIFA, since its inception 7-8 years ago, has exactly done that. Have you found, from your own experience within the organisation to date, and even looking from the outside in, that there are people who have had similar journeys to yourself in terms of working things out? Of course, that's not a question to be taken lightly, given you have people from Eastern Europe, the likes of Crimea, Donetsk, people from marginalized communities coming out of civil war.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, getting involved in an organization such as CONIFA is for more larger purpose. Would you say, if there was one thing which would unify all the members of CONIFA by, what would that one thing be?
Oh, passion for who we are. You know, it's a fighting spirit. Yeah, I think that is the underlying factor for anyone that wants to really represent themselves. I think that has to exist. Yeah, I think that's what I think if you touch on it, I think that's what comes first. You know, who puts themselves forward? Who are those people that represent themselves first and foremost and starts paving a way? It's people of action. You know, the samurais and warriors of this world. That sort of 1% mentality where someone actually decides to step up and say, well, we need to put ourselves forward, and we need to represent either our fight or just what we really love or what we believe in or what we feel is right, and all these sort of little notions. But ultimately, you know, it's people of action. And, you know, samurai and warrior, these words all derive from that one understanding that these, you know, samurai just simply means a person of action. And that's what it's all about. And I think when, you know, you're sort of touching on, you know, is it, you know, are people's stories all similar? I think anyone that is doing anything that they are, you know, really passionate about and feel like they're driven to do are all a similar inclination. I think, you know, that it's just that real drive to be yourself. Yeah, and we all have a life purpose. We all have a soul purpose or a soul mission, whatever. And some people are just in that right time where they feel that it's now time to sort of see that through properly and break out. So I think CONIFA is actually, in its truest sense, a portal for that. You know, so I think CONIFA as a whole is a completely volunteer organisation, and I don't think you put yourself in for what we go through lightly, as none of us do, Connor. You know, I mean, you're a man that's pushed himself. You know, I look down through your CV, and just on the back of your education alone, I find it absolutely phenomenal what you've put yourself through. And then obviously you've taken yourself off to Dubai, and now you just become operations manager with one of the greatest club organisations in the world. You know, so these things don't happen lightly, mate. They really don't. Yeah.
But you speak about being a man of action, and then certainly you've embodied that at a global level with CONIFA. But also, if we were to look at it locally, you're on the board of the Kernow FA. Now, even from the attire you have today, you are wearing the Cornwall badge on your suit. Now,
that's right.
Take us inside exactly what a Kernow FA board meeting looks like, given what we spoke about last time.
A public house. No, it's actually it's just a great knock-on effect. In a way of CONIFA, but also, you know, sort of, it's a nice middle meeting ground from those that are just pure football people of Cornwall, and then pure football people of CONIFA. And for us, it's that perfect blend. So we're, you know, extremely fortunate that I think within Kernow FA there's about 17 people. We don't really call it a board. It's more of a collective, I would say. You know, because you only attract these people in. We've all got titles, but we all just feel that we're all our own people just as much in any sense. And it's completely democratic. Everyone's opinion really matters. And it's a really fun place to be, actually. Really fun place to be. There's people there so I co-founded it with a guy called Andrew Bragg, who is a lifetime baller. He's 59 this year. So he's been kicking a ball for nearly 60 years. He's played all through his youth, then he managed, then he's coached. and he coached for 30 years. And some of the lads in the Kernow FA team were in his youth setup, although they're coming into late 30s now. There's managers out there that have been through his youth setup. So, without the likes of Andrew, these things don't exist. But Tom Howe, who's now global media director for CONIFA, actually helped to start telling the story locally. Before we'd even got started, he was in the World Cup final with me, and it was at the semi-finals. And it's just phenomenal who we've attracted and what it really means. Geographically, Cornwall is extremely difficult. It's got an incredible footballing infrastructure, and Cornwall FA do an excellent job in maintaining that, an excellent youth setup. But, so what we provide is what they don't do, and, in terms of international, and then we don't get in the way of the domestic stuff, and we kind of work together, So, like I say, we've just put someone in place that Cornwall needs, but that's kind of it really, and it just seems to have attracted some very beautiful and passionate people. That means that we've been able to go forward. So now we started with the men's because that's just what we knew. But now we've got a women's team that's due to have its first trials and open games in about 3 weeks' time. And we've got an inclusive football team as well. And once we've sort of started digging into this, the people that have come out, not out the woodwork, it's just already there. And they actually now can't believe the opportunity that they'll have to be on the world stage. And I can't believe the opportunity that I've got to work with these incredible people. So yeah, it's great. It's really great. But everyone seems to have a good, strong sort of winning mentality, and they actually really, they're just naturally like that. So kind of blessed that you get to be surrounded by these people. Really, yeah. I think Darren Gilbert, the manager, I think he's top 15. In win rate in all managers in English football ever. It's phenomenal. It's honestly, it's phenomenal. I mean, ever. And that's just as a manager. I think as a player, he'd won everything down here. So you've got a really good hardcore footballing fraternity down there that it's just nice for them to be able to represent themselves, especially as a people, because there's nothing more prouder than a Cornish person representing its nation,
Exactly.
And for me, it's just about being respectful of the land. I've lived down here for nearly 20 years, and it's the idea of that sort of giving back. At the end of the day, you've been accepted and been allowed to live your life. I think you should pay respect to that.
And I think what rings true, certainly what you said there, is there's that famous quote: the strength of the organization is its very own people. And I think what you said earlier on, these people weren't exactly coming out of the woodwork. They were already there. It's just giving them a platform, really. But then in terms of what's already there in Europe, you have the likes of Cornwall, you have Yorkshire, you have Crimea, Greenland. North America, you have Quebec, Cascadia, Oceania, you even have Hawaii. I mean, to the best of your knowledge, perhaps, could you share some light on some of the, I suppose, most heartwarming stories you've heard of these communities?
Everyone's got their own story. That's the beauty of CONIFA. We could genuinely sit here all day talking about one team. Heartwarming stories. I think like the heartwarming side is when people, that they're representing what they're representing, and the fight behind that scene is quite arduous at times and absolutely diabolical in terms of humanitarian. How can I phrase this? And by diabolical, I mean that there's atrocities that are getting carried out within this within the world that shouldn't be happening. And and when you see that some of these people actually get the ball on the floor, regardless of where they've come from, and put themselves out there, that's the sort of heartwarming side, because these people are as passionate about playing football as they are about us representing people, and I think there's nothing greater than seeing people in adversity where you know that they're pushing through, and they're really just taking life on, and I really admire that, and I really respect that, and that's kind of like a driving force for everyone that's involved in CONIFA. But so that's the heartwarming stuff. It's kind of hard to touch on a kind of heartwarming moment without. Within the tournament,
it's a question.
It's a tough one, like 2018, say we just go back to 2018, you've got a World Cup in London. It's the first time that CONIFA's ever done an independent World Cup, and we'd all sort of pulled together and made this happen. And then you've got teams coming from as far away as Tuvalu. They've done 25,000 kilometers, and then you've got Tibet in there, and that Tibet get hounded out all over the world by the Chinese government, and they can't even get friendlies. And there was a few times during the run up to that tournament where we were really quite desperate for money, because we just didn't quite have enough to really put the tournament on, and we had to be really creative in how we were going to approach it and pull it off. And there was a few times we were at the table putting ink on paper with regards to sponsorship packages, and said companies would say, look, we're more than happy with all of this, but it'd be easier for us if Tibet don't play. And you're like, what are you talking about? You sort of go through these little motions, and it's just then a case of, well, Tibet are playing, that's it. So then that's that deal off. So the heartwarming moments is when people actually stick to the guns and really put themselves out there for what you really say you're doing. And that's what I like about CONIFA. And then Tibet get to play. That you've got heartwarming moments like that. And then Carpetalia, for instance, came in as a not a wild card, but they came into, someone couldn't make the tournament, and Carpetalia come in at the last minute and win the tournament, playing some of the best football I've ever witnessed. It was just like pure Jimmy Hogan style football, and I just remember stood there watching it, thinking, this is incredible. I've been trying to, I've been coaching this sort of mentality and philosophy. It was straight. It could have been out of Barcelona's academy. It could have been out of Ajax's academy. It could have been from a Brazil training ground. It was just, honestly, it was beautiful to watch. And they just had that pure spirit. They were just taking all the chances, and they were just sort of swept through the tournament. And their player, actually, the player of the tournament, I put him in for player of the tournament, and it was their goalkeeper. And you should have seen him. He wasn't the biggest keeper, but he read the game. It was his goal line saves. It was the last minute saves. It was his distribution. It was his contribution to the game. He saved 3 penalties in a final. Do you know what I mean? It was just phenomenal. So you get heartwarming stories like that, I suppose, mate. And just providing that platform. That Carpetalia went back. I think they're going back to sort of Ukraine, and they get in trouble with the authorities, representing a people over the state and these sorts of notions. So, you have the heartwarming side, and then CONIFA always, you go through the motions with CONIFA, and you'll achieve one thing, and then literally straight in the side comes a massive tackle, studs up everything, and sends people flying. So you've got to be able to cope with that sort of juggernaut of that sort of geopolitics that comes to the table. So that, but then people just seem to absorb it and deal with it. So heartwarming, there's a lot of heartwarming, but I think the heartwarming comes from that sort of solidarity, if that makes sense, from knowing what your position in the world. Yeah, I think that's sort of the heartwarming side.
I think it's just really, as we touched upon earlier on, as regards CONIFA with the mission statement, that certainly like attracts like, and if anything else, CONIFA as a platform has just filtered out kind of all the fatty bits that aren't really, needed in these football administrations. I mean, I think it's absolutely tremendous what you spoke about earlier on, saying that these people, they didn't come out of the woodwork. All they needed really was just a platform to kind of coexist along with each other and share ideas right across the world. And even just being in touch with the guys down in Africa, Miriam and Christian recently. They're fantastic people doing, God's work down there, so to speak. And then I suppose you speak about also studs up tackles. There's no worse tackle than, of course, COVID last year with last summer's men's European Championships in North Macedonia postponed. However, this summer we do have the Women's World Cup. How are preparations going for that, Jason?
Well, unfortunately, preparations were going well and, put everything together, but they decided just over the last 48 hours that the tournament, they're going to put it back till 2022. It's in line with the sort of football clubs that we're working with in Sheffield, in and around the same area in Romania. They were looking to host, I think, the UEFA Under-19s tournament, which has also been put back till next year. So we just sort of had to sort of draw a breath on that one. There was a phenomenal uptake for those wanting to participate. Not everyone could, a couple of disgruntled sort of members, but that's the passion. So in terms of that sort of preparation now, it just moves back 12 months. I think it gives it more time. I think actually, for the benefit of the women's game, for those members, I think it'll be a much bigger tournament now. It was going to be 8 teams. It's looking at 12 or 16, such is the growth of the sort of women's team within the members. So I think just waiting that year out and giving it that time a bit more beneficial. And I think, coming out of this pandemic, restrictions and such like, I think let's let it all settle down. Everyone get back to the feet. All the players are hungry. That's never in doubt. But I think people just need time to get back to a little bit of normality, and then look forward to a major football tournament next year. So it's the right decision, and you've got to go with what's the government or organisations are saying, and be responsible.
And then going forward, Jason, with CONIFA, what is the plan? Where do you see the organisation in 10, 20 years' time?
Well, I think it'll still be here. I would like to see it. There's quite a few things I would like to see. Development on the continents. So we've worked extraordinarily hard over the last few years, but certainly over the last year, the development on the continents, with presidents and committees, working closer with government organisations, and making sure that the growth that has happened over the last 12 months doesn't outgrow itself, so that it's too thin, that there's strength in depth, and that people, the sort of mentality and the attraction remains as strong as it is now. 20 years, Nobel Peace Prize winning global humanitarian organization. a solid place in the world. I would like to see some stronger partnerships. I would like to see active partnerships. So say if we're working down with Barotseland, with Christian, we're opening up some sort of facilities. We're looking to provide facilities and such like, an opportunity on the ground there. It would be nice if we've been working with a partnership, say, who are providing, let's just say, a solar power, a company that provides solar power, where we've maybe been able to put floodlights in, shower facilities, and maybe hot running water, hot running cold water for that matter. But there's a free energy element to it that means that the communities thrive, and football is integral to that community. I'd like to just see that sort of growth, so that the community, it can't be about survival all the time. As Dr. Bruce Lipton says, let's talk thrival. Let's talk about thriving communities, not just survival. It would be nice to sort of keep edging away from that sort of mentality, edging away from a victim mentality. Yeah, you can come to the table, you might be a victim in terms of some sort of socio-economic upheaval, but it doesn't mean you have to carry that mentality over. That's your choice. What we want. It's about opportunity then. So I'd like to just see that sort of mindset and paradigms and is what's available to people, and people can pick up on, so that we can grow out from that core and really bring that sort of that belief and faith in yourself. We can't just keep pandering around on whims of hope. So I think for that and just a greater recognition, a more solid platform, I think at some point the organisation will have to become professional to a degree. People will have to start getting wages, I feel, for the time that they put in. It's an extraordinary workload. When you've got a population representative of 675 million as we speak, that is an extraordinary workload. It is phenomenal. The people that operate within the bounds of CONIFA, just within the Global Executive Committee and alone, I find it staggering what people, not just what people are capable of, which I think, you have to look at every day. And, and it's completely inspired. But, people are doing full-time jobs on top of full-time jobs. So it would be nice to see people getting that sort of recompense and then being able to commit more wholeheartedly to that and stuff like that. So yeah, I think those sort of things are nice. And then I'd just like to see the growth within the members that exist already, making sure that, that they can still exist and be representative of all that's been before and all that they want to achieve, and really sort of look after that cultural identity. I think that's just hugely important. I really do. And I think that's what humanity is, I suppose. Just making sure that there's access, people have got access to people, and we can just communicate.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think, on a personal note, Jason, it's absolutely tremendous, not only the work, what you do at CONIFA, but absolutely everybody involved in the organization. Because, you speak about representing, 675 million people worldwide, but they're all unified in a way by the same voice. And when you have so many like-minded people from 6-7 continents all over the world working towards a single outcome, I think, great things are bound to happen, be it 10, 15, 20 years time. I think the actual success of CONIFA, looking from the outside in, is not actually reaching an end point or an end goal. It's more or less, you would agree, in the actual doing, in the actual project itself, of the actual, existence of the organization. But
I think you're right.
Should people wish to engage and learn more about CONIFA and its plans going forward, where's best to look online, Jason?
Well, go to the website. There's email access from the website. You can go to any social media platform and just ask a question. I get emails. I get emails all the time, as we all do. It's very open. It's an open door policy. We don't turn people away. You've got to put yourself forward, and you've got to be open to speaking. It's like us engaging now. It's like I'm not massive on social media. I've actually trimmed off a little bit, and I've actually just gone to using LinkedIn only now. But I found it as a really great portal for those that are looking to really get on with what they want to get on with, and I seem to come across a lot of people that are able to find that opportunity to extend their understanding through CONIFA, which is always nice. I did. There's things I just didn't know I needed to know, that I've absolutely found through putting myself forward through the organisation. And you come in and you've got a responsibility to yourself, and if you say you're going to do something, it's up to you to do it, and you'll get the support from everyone around you, and everyone will sort of really commit to helping you make things happen. But you've got to put yourself out there. You'll get backed for doing what you want to do, so if that's what's up people's street and that's where they want to find themselves, and just simply get in touch. But don't just come in waiting to be told what to do. Bring something to the table and be open and just express yourself. That it might work on this occasion, it might not work, it might just be great to have made an acquaintance and follow each other, and try and find a little place for yourself. But we can't just sort of take everybody on and put arms around everyone and stuff like that. One is the energy it takes to do that is too much, and ultimately, the organisation doesn't drive itself on that. So if it is that you feel like you've got something to do in the world and you feel like you could do it for us, then just get in touch. No problem. And that's pretty much how it runs itself. It's quite an organic operation in that sense, and no one's perfect, and everyone's looking to learn. So I think for that as well, it's just a good place to be, mate. It's a good place to be. There's good harmony, and a good level of understanding.
Fantastic. I'll be sure to link both the website and your LinkedIn profile below, Jason.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Every time I speak with you, I get a lot of value out of the conversation. Anyways, absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast finally. Must get you on again in the future. But Jason, pleasure as always speaking with you. Top man.
Thank you very much indeed, Connor, and all the best with this podcast series that you're doing and the career that you've forged for yourself, because it doesn't come easy. It does not come easy. So massive respect to you for the work that you've carried out and that you're continuing to do. I very much look forward to the rest of the series. And as you know, we'll make this a collaborative effort, and we'll do our utmost to make sure that the reach for the work that you're doing is as far extending as we possibly can. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you for the nice words, Jason. Much appreciated.
It's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure, Connor. Have a great day.
Thank you.